This is the Meeting of Minds podcast with me, Philippa Robinson. In this episode of the Meeting of Minds podcast, I'm in conversation with Cléa. Now, we did have a few issues with the sound today, and I'm sorry, such as the joys of recording on Zoom. I met Cléa earlier this year and was so pleased she agreed to come on the podcast. Our conversation blew me away, and there is so much for us all to learn in this episode. I was pretty emotional at times, as you'll hear. Among other things, Cléa tells us about her giving up her dream of performing as a singer-songwriter and how she has found a new career to pursue her passion for music. She also tells us about her recent autism diagnosis. She is interesting, open and warm, and I know you're going to love this conversation. Now, over to Cléa. So Cléa, hi, good morning.
Hi.
Hi, how are you today? Good, I hope.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good.
Yeah,
We're
first day of the Christmas holidays, so
great because we're recording this on the Monday
actually.
before Christmas, on Christmas Day on Friday, and yeah, you're off this week, aren't you? So here you are relaxing, but recording with me, but we can have a nice conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So we're here to talk about your 20s, and you've got a lot of years to talk about. Sorry, that makes you sound really old, but you're one of the older ones that I'm talking to, because you're 29, so you're at the end of your 20s. So you've got all those years to look back on. So I'd really love it if you could sort of give us a little idea of what your 20s have been like for you, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm 29, so I'm turning 30 in April, so not long to go. And yeah, I found this really interesting to think about because I am coming to the end of my 20s and it feels like quite a big thing to be turning 30. My 20s were definitely better than my teens. I really struggled as a teenager. I had like a lot of mental health problems, and yeah, I found it really difficult those years. So 20s were definitely an improvement on that.
Good.
I loved going to uni, and obviously I finished that at the beginning of my 20s. And then I think I found those years kind of after uni like quite difficult. I think I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really have a lot of like the life skills that I feel like, to live independently, that was quite difficult. I had these jobs that were like quite low paid, and I wasn't really using like the skills that I'd learned at uni. So it was a bit disheartening in a way at times, I think, to keep going with work. And then when I was 25, I started my master's in music therapy. So I trained to become a music therapist. And that was a 3-year training. So that took up like quite a bit of that middle 20s bit of my life.
Yeah, that's a long master's course, actually, isn't it? Was that part-time?
Yeah, part-time. So I was working alongside that as well.
Hard work.
And then it was a lot to do. And I think with part-time, like when things are part-time, they're never really part-time. Like you end up doing way more than full-time when you have multiple part-time things going on. So yeah, it was a lot, but I really enjoyed that. And then when I graduated from that, I got my full-time music therapy job, which I was really pleased about, because with therapy jobs, like it's not that easy to come by sort of like full-time work.
Yeah.
I have like a full-time permanent contract, so it's really nice. I can kind of do the work without having to worry too much about looking for work all the time, and like networking and all that stuff, because I'm not very confident with that. So I think the end of my 20s has definitely been a lot better than the start. And I've learned so much this last, 9-10 years. And yeah, I think it's like when I guess I've always kind of I don't know, I've always worried a bit, or like I've always been quite scared about growing up. And from the age of 8, my mum told me about the 27 Club, which is, all these famous musicians that died when they were 27. And so my whole life, from the age of 8, I thought I was going to die when I was 27. I just got it into my head. I got really fixated on it. So I kind of never really thought that like I would have the end of my 20s. Like it was never really a fixed idea.
Oh,
And obviously
Cléa.
when you're like when you're a child, it seems so far away that it doesn't, it doesn't bother me. But then when I got to like 26, I was like, oh, what if I don't die? Like I'm gonna have to figure out how to do the rest of my life.
Do you think that were you living your life during your 20s up until that stage thinking that there was a real likelihood you wouldn't get past 27?
Yeah, kind of. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I could never see it. I could never kind of like see past 27.
Yeah, because you really had this sort of, I suppose, block, for want of a better word, or a wall maybe, that actually 27, that you couldn't see what was past it.
Yeah, definitely. So it wasn't that I sort of didn't do anything because I thought I was going to die and it was pointless.
Yeah.
I think I still lived my life, fully in whatever sense.
Yeah.
But there was definitely this thing of, oh, well, I'm just going to die, so it's fine. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So, that was, when I turned 28, that was quite a pivotal thing.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and I feel actually the year of 27 was I changed a lot during that year, I think. And really that set me up for where I am now. And I think it was partly because of the 27 Club thing, but also just generally I was really worried about getting older, and I felt like I would never really have like the skills that I would need to be like a proper adult. Actually, when I was around sort of 26, 27, 28, I really developed a lot of those skills, and I don't feel that now. Like I feel like I can look into my 30s and think like I am capable of living at that age.
Yeah. Of course you are. You've got this now, but you haven't always felt like that.
Yeah, and I think there is I did see like a quote a long time ago that kind of stuck with me, and it was to do with it was something like, don't try to solve tomorrow's problems with today's skills or like today's knowledge.
Okay.
And I think it's something about, when you look into the future and you think, well, I'm never going to be able to, I don't know, like do something, in the future. And it's because you're not ready for it now, but you will be by the time it comes.
Yeah. So, and whenever it comes, it will come when you're ready for it. So you will be ready. But I think that is absolutely right. And I've said loads of times on things I've spoken about on this podcast and other things that I'm a bit of a late starter, I think. And I totally agree with you. But it's only when you get there that you think, it's okay, I'm ready for this now. And I think what you're saying is that's your experience. You've got here, you're post 27, thank goodness. And, you are looking at your 30s and thinking, actually, it's okay. I've got this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that quote or the meaning behind that quote, if we can't remember what the exact quote is absolutely right, because you can spend a lot of time worrying about what is to come and that you won't be able to do it, rather than living your life now and naturally getting to whatever that stage is, and you will be able to do it when you get there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I did do a lot of work on myself. I was training to be a therapist, so you know, through those years, I had a lot of therapy myself. And one of the big things was, you know, coming to terms with the fact that I will live after 27. And I thought, if I have one goal for this year, I think it was when I was turning 27, I was like, if I've got one goal for this year, it's to come to terms with living and come to terms with dying. Like, it's kind of like both of those things. And I did, and you know, by the end of that year, I did feel like I was ready to kind of live the rest of my life.
Ooh, it's like, you're making me feel quite emotional. It's like, you know, and I don't know you that well, and it's amazing to hear you say that. And you know, you're also reminding me of what happened when I had my breakdown 4 years ago, and I think I'd been in that sort of holding space for so long, and trying to do. You're just making me realize that actually that's what I was doing, and I hadn't really appreciated that I'd just been holding this space all that time, and sort of having a career that I didn't really like. It was a good career, but I didn't really like it. And, you know, I got married and had kids, thank God, before I was too old for that to happen. But I was just in this holding pattern all the time. And it's only actually since I had my breakdown 4 years ago that I feel like I am now living. I mean, for different reasons. I mean, you know, you have this idea of the 27 in your head, but it's a similar outcome on the other side of that, getting past that. How do I step to the other side of this wall and live?
Gosh, yeah, absolutely.
I think that, yeah, so I'm feeling really emotional for you, but I think partly I'm feeling emotional for myself as well. And it's quite, I'm feeling a real, like, I kind of just want to cheer, yay for you, you know. I mean, you know, and that must have been a real moment. I mean, it wouldn't have been a single moment. It must have been a real time for you when you realised that is what was happening.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it is strange because I never had, like, I was never scared, or I was never worried that I would die when I was 27. Like, I didn't really have that many feelings about it. It was just a thing that was going to happen, and it didn't affect me like day to day in terms of like my own like well-being or anything. It was a very strange thing, but yeah, it's weird to be here as like a 29-year-old, like thinking about, oh yeah, remember when that actually took up a lot of space in my head, and it doesn't anymore because it's gone.
Yeah. And gosh, your poor mum would never have had any idea of what that sort of one throwaway comment would have sort of, you know, the effect it would have had. And, you know, we never know how things are going to be taken, but, you know, yeah, gosh.
Well, she paid for it, it's fine.
She paid for it by listening, but with your worry, yes, and worrying about you worrying about it. And yes, okay. So can I ask you about what did you do at university?
My undergrad?
Yeah.
I did music.
You did music? Oh, okay. Yeah, because you are a great musician, aren't you? And so, and then you did these jobs, like, I suppose if you graduated at 21, like, you know, until you started your master's at 25. What made you, do you have an idea of what made you feel, because the whole reason I'm doing this podcast is I did a post on Instagram quite a while ago about being in your 20s, and actually 20s is a time when I think a lot of people feel, certainly early 20s, you know, especially if you've, you know, left full-time education, and it's kind of like you're out in the world. So there you go, off you go. We've given you all the skills, which they don't, you know, but, you know, off into the world, and, you know, just go and live your life. And, you know, that's really tough. And it's a tough time to try and work out, you know, those big life questions. Who am I? What do I want to do? What do I stand for? You know, what are my values? All those things. And what I said in this post is that actually 20s is more a time for what I called, because I got it from a book, it wasn't my original idea, trying on life's uniforms. So, you know, do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Do I actually want to do a job that just allows me to earn money, because actually my real passion is doing something else and I need the money to be able to do that? I mean, there are all sorts of things to sort of, you know, work out, I feel, in your 20s. What your you know, where are your passions, and is that something you can earn money from, or is it something you need to earn money doing something else and then allowing you to spend the money doing that passion, or what is it? And so obviously those jobs that you had when you left university were giving you that space to think, okay, what do I want to do? And what do you have a sense of what made you land on art therapy?
So when I was at uni, obviously I was studying music, and I always like gigged a lot, and I did, you know, I'm a singer-songwriter, so I did a lot of that, you know, constantly writing songs, constantly performing. And in my final year at uni, I recorded and released this EP, which I was, you know, really, really kind of proud of and really happy with. And when I then left uni, I went to uni in Leeds, and I stayed in Leeds for a little while after finishing, for about a year. And in that time, because I knew so many people and I still gigged loads, and I still, just like was performing loads and networking a bit and stuff. And I was kind of at the point where like I could have got bigger, like as a musician. I had like a management deal, and I moved to London, and as soon as I moved to London, I kind of was like, I'm done, like I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't know where to perform. I didn't want to perform. I'd like really fallen out of love with performing. I started performing, like it kind of was like, because I was kind of at the next level, but also in a new city, I was playing gigs to like kind of empty rooms, because that's kind of what happens. Whereas before I'd had, you know, really big gigs, where I'd played to loads of people, because it was a smaller place and I knew everyone and I'd been there for so long. And then I moved to London and I was like, I don't like this. This is really difficult. And I wasn't able to do all the other kind of like administrative things to like get myself to really be successful at that level. And I had this management deal, and it didn't really, like the way that it worked wasn't really what I was expecting, so that kind of felt I ended up kind of stopping that after a while. And I just fallen out of love with it, and I thought, this isn't, you know, I used to have a lot of like anxiety with performing and stuff, and I just felt like it wasn't good for me, like it wasn't good for my mental health. But obviously I love music, and I loved, you know, I love working with music, and it's so important to me, and it has been so important to me throughout my life. And I knew that I wanted to do something with music, but I didn't want to perform anymore.
Okay.
It's been like a real journey, I think, with the performing thing, because when I was at school, I used to perform a lot. But before I applied to uni, I wasn't even going to do music at uni. I was so, I don't know, I had no confidence with it. So I didn't want to do it. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe that I could do it. And then I changed my mind, and I thought, actually, no, I will do music at uni, which was obviously the best thing that I could have done. But when I was at school, I had heard of music therapy, and I had thought about it as a career. But then I had this like careers talk at uni about it, and they really put me off, because they were like, there's no jobs, there's no money in it, like, you know, it just didn't really seem like a viable career option. So I just forgot about it. And then years later, so that was when I was like 19, and then I think when I was about 23, 24, I was working in a special needs school in London, and I did all the music lessons there because the music teacher was like on long-term sick at the time. So I covered all the music lessons. So I was working with children with like profound disabilities and using music to connect with them and like to support communication and like well-being and stuff. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And one of the teachers said to me like, oh, have you considered music therapy as something to do? And I suddenly remembered all those years ago when I wanted to do that. And so I applied and I got onto the course in Bristol. And yeah, I sort of moved to Bristol, like it took a few years, but ended up here anyway. And that's that really with music therapy. And interestingly, I posted on Facebook at the end of my first day on my master's, and one of my friends from school, who I hadn't really spoken to in years, was like, "Oh wow, I'm so glad you're finally like doing your dream." And I was like, I don't remember this being my dream, but it must have been at one point. So that made me feel really good about the fact that I was doing that. And now, you know, being a music therapist suits me so much. And it really, because when I was at uni, I did a lot of psychology of music modules, and I was really interested in psychology of music and like why we listen to certain music and why it has such a great impact on us.
Yeah.
And so the music therapy is much more kind of aligned to that side of things. And I love it. I think it's something that I just feel that I am good at, and it feels really rewarding to do. And I meet so many amazing people through it as well. So, and I get to work with music every day. I get to like sing and play my guitar every day, which is really nice. But in a way, you know, I'm doing it for someone else, which just feels better. Like I didn't like performing because it felt like I was just kind of doing it for myself. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm getting, as you're saying that, I'm getting a sense of a couple of things. One, it's almost goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that maybe you weren't ready at 19 to consider it as a career, but by the time you got to 25, you were ready. And we were talking about that earlier, weren't we, about things coming to us when we're ready. And the other thing that is really, you know, I'm getting a real sense of obviously your love of music, and maybe your discomfort or and perhaps your disappointment at finding that you didn't want to perform anymore, or you weren't enjoying it, and it was bad for your mental health, so you didn't want to carry on doing it. But finding a way to bring the bit you love about music into your everyday in a different way, and using it to help other people. So actually, you know, you found a way to bring that round, and which just sounds fabulous. And when you're talking about it, I can, you know, I can just hear that it's something that you really love, which is great. I mean, you know, to do a job that we love is, you know, fabulous. Not all of us get that. And, you know, I did a career for years, but I never really loved it. So I really think it's fabulous that you went, you know, you made that decision, you did your masters, and you've now got a full-time permanent job doing exactly what you love. And I think that's fabulous. And that might change in a few years. You might want it to change and go down a slightly different avenue, but you don't need to worry about that. You just enjoy it for now.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel like it's all worked out.
Yeah.
And, you know, to think of all the time that I spent like really not knowing what I wanted to do. Like I'd worked so hard and spent so much time doing stuff to be sort of like a musician, you know, have a career as a musician. And it was really difficult to sort of lay that aside and think, actually, that's not for me and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, you know, obviously you have... Yeah, and I had, you know, it's also facing like other people's disappointment or other people's opinions on it. Like, you know, my parents are really supportive and you know, they both love music. But, you know, my stepdad definitely was like, oh, well, you're just doing this music therapy thing for now. You'll get back to being a musician again, sort of thing. And I did sort of feel like that isn't the case. That isn't what I'm doing. You know, I was definitely doing the music therapy thing as a, you know, long-term career. And I think, you know, I know my parents are proud of me and I know that they think that what I'm doing is worthwhile, but there was an element, I think, you know, before, when I first started doing that and when I sort of abandoned the performing side, because that's what I'd been doing for so many years, they were a bit like, oh, you're not going to get famous and you're not going, you know, we're not going to have like a famous child and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, my mum always says that she always wanted to be a rock star, so she put all of her like hopes onto me instead. But yeah, she has said that actually, you know, she thinks that what I'm doing now is better in that, because it makes me happy as well, and it helps other people. So it's, yeah, I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't have any like hang-ups about that now, but I think at the time when I first really abandoned my performing sort of career, they were a bit like, oh, okay, we've just, you know, we've put all this money and stuff into you having lessons or whatever. Okay, you're going in a different direction, that's fine.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, I need all of that for this.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I do think at those times when you're making big life decisions, it is equally as hard to deal with other people's reactions, expectations, and what they'd wanted for us as well. And you know, obviously, you know, people who love you and want the best for you, and but the only one who really knows is you, isn't it? And like you say, all that performing experience and all that you'd learned, it has actually brought you to where you are now. And actually, you have no idea where it's going to take you. But that's all in the future, isn't it? For now, it's brought you here to your great career. I don't want to gloss over some of the things you've said, and I just want to ask you, how is your mental health now? Are you good?
Yeah, things are much better now. I still have like anxiety and stuff, but I was diagnosed. I went through a process of being diagnosed as autistic earlier this year, and that has had a huge impact on my mental health. Because even though I obviously have done a lot of like self exploration and analysis, you know, through therapy and everything, it's like autism is this huge part of me that I didn't know about until this year. And you know, I was trying to kind of fit myself into being someone who I wasn't, and trying to force myself to overcome things that are just things that I can't do, or are things that bring me down, like make me feel really anxious, make me feel depressed, because I didn't realize that I just work differently, you know. And I think, yeah, having that diagnosis has made, I mean, it was only a few months ago, it was only like July 2020, but yeah, like it's just changed my whole world, really. Like, it's given me the language to be able to talk about what I find difficult, and it's given me like a real understanding of a lot of the things, like a lot of the things I've struggled with, or like a lot of the things that I've done in my life, and it's made me understand why that's happened, or why why I found things difficult. And it's also kind of given me like permission to, like, I've given myself permission with the diagnosis to be really passionate about things that I love, and to be the person that I am, because that is who I am. And like I really hate that you have, that I've had to go through that and have a diagnosis to be like that, to accept myself. But I just have, because I think the way that I've navigated the world until this, last year or so, has been like, has not quite worked for me. And I just, and that's been a huge thing, because even though I've had like mental health problems for a long time, like I've never really understood the root cause of that, and the root cause was autism. So
okay. And you, do you feel that that's right, that actually the mental health issues that you've suffered with over the years, actually you can trace those back to the roots of those probably come from your autism, and perhaps trying to, for want of a better description, fit in a way that you thought you were expected to, but I think age helps as well, and we don't, as we get older, we don't try to fit in quite so much. But also, do you feel your diagnosis has given yourself permission now not to worry about the fitting in and to just do you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the last couple of years, before the diagnosis, like you said, I definitely felt like I wasn't trying to fit in as much. And even when I was a teenager, like I was kind of like, oh, I'm so different, and I'd never like tried to fit in, but there were definitely things where, like, in friendship groups, like I would act in a certain way that people would think was strange, and sometimes that was fine, and sometimes that was just, oh, you're a bit different, you're a bit, a bit weird or whatever. But it led to a lot of like friendships like ending, breaking down. And I had this kind of real thing of, I didn't really hold on to friends for that long. I'd have like really intense friendships, and then they'd just stop, like quite dramatically, usually from the other person basically telling me I'm too much or whatever. And I think I always thought that there was something wrong with me. But I think it's actually just that, like, the way that I show affection and stuff, like doesn't, like, other people necessarily, like, aren't necessarily ready for that, or like not expecting that. And so I just found it difficult to navigate like a lot of those friendships. And I think there's a big thing about women and gender non-conforming people who are not diagnosed at a young age because of things like this. I had friends. It's not like I didn't have any friends. But they were quite dysfunctional friendships a lot of the time, or they were really good at the start and then became really dysfunctional. I had a few friends, like, over the years, and relationships as well, where like I was kind of taken advantage of, like, the way that I was, like, because I was quite generous and like would do any, quite loyal as well, so would do anything for people. And that was definitely like abused sometimes. And I think that's really, I felt like I wasn't really protected from that because I was vulnerable, being autistic and not knowing about it as well. So I think that definitely happened.
That sounds tough, actually.
And I definitely, so I was in my late teens, early 20s, like when I was at uni, I was in like a really abusive relationship, and that actually was a wake-up call of like, I need to stop people doing this. Like I need to not be in this position again. But it actually, having reflected on it a lot since then, it was like the I don't know what the word is. It's like all of the friendships that I had were dysfunctional and problematic, kind of culminated in this relationship that I had when I was at uni. And I needed to have something that was that bad to make me realise like the boundaries that I needed to set and stuff like that, and the way that more functional relationships worked. And I think when I was younger, I didn't realise that that's not what like most friendships were. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right that sometimes that we unfortunately we learn a lot from the bad relationships in our life, don't we? And we learn what it is that I think we somehow learn what we want in a relationship by experiencing what we don't want. And that's really tough. And it's really tough when you're in it and in the thick of it, and you take it and take it and take it until, because you just do, and you don't see it, I think, sometimes when you're in it. And it's only when you're out of it you can think, there is no way I'm doing that again. If you manage to do that. I mean, I had a repeating pattern of alcoholic partners at one point, and but that alcohol features big in my family background, so that's not a total surprise. But eventually, as I keep saying, I'm a bit of a late starter. Eventually I did realize that pattern, but it took me a long time, and it's really hard. It is really hard at the time, but it sounds like you use that to the best that you could, and actually move forward from that with a better of idea of what you do want in a relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I talked earlier about perhaps you not fitting in, and I'm sorry, that is me putting my that those are my words actually, and I'm projecting my experience at school of not fitting in onto you, when I shouldn't have done, because yours was a very different experience. So I apologize for using those words.
No, I think I have definitely felt like I haven't fit in, but I've always tried. Like, I felt like I've definitely felt like I haven't fit in, but I have had a very up and down relationship with whether I try to fit in or not.
Yes, which is very different to my experience. So I was listening to you and thinking, yeah, that is not what you said, and that is my feeling. So I just wanted to sort of point that out. I just feel like we're talking to you now at a really fabulous time in your life, really, and that your diagnosis has been a really positive thing for you by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've really, I've told a lot of people now about it. Like, most of my friends know, my family, and people at work as well know. I haven't told any clients, but yeah, all my colleagues at work know. And actually, I'm doing a lot to try and learn more from the autistic community, and to really kind of I guess, educate and advocate for people in my job, because obviously I work in an area where we do work with a lot of autistic people, a lot of people who are disabled, and it's always important to learn from the people that you're working with, like how they want to be treated and what's important to them. But yeah, I do feel like the position I'm in quite a privileged position, in that I can communicate verbally, I can talk about these things, and I can learn from other people. And so I'm really trying to do that in my current job, with my colleagues, and I do get into conversations with people about different things. There was recently, I don't know if you saw any of this, but recently there was this thing that came out with Sia, who's the musician.
I did see that.
Yeah, so she has basically directed and produced or written and directed a film about a teenage girl with autism who is she communicates through like an augmented communication device, and the person who plays the main character is Maddie Ziegler, who is in Sia's music videos and has been for a long time, who is not autistic, who is not disabled, and there's obviously been a big people have been very upset by that, and there's a lot of it's a very complex issue, but having like a non-disabled actor play a disabled person is like, I guess it happens all the time, but it shouldn't. And we're constantly learning, and yet people are still doing it. And even every time there's obviously talking about autism, but every time there's an autistic character played by a neurotypical actor, people have issues with it, and yet no one seems to be learning from this, and no one seems to be reaching out and really trying to understand what it is that will make good representation. And it's been written by someone who also is not autistic, and that in itself is bad. I watched the trailer before I'd heard any of the controversy around it, and I felt really uncomfortable at the way that the character was portrayed, and I was like, this isn't okay, I don't like this. But then what made it worse was that Sia then kind of like hit out against people that were criticizing her, and it just made it all a lot worse, because she wasn't like she didn't apologize for it at all. She just made up a lot of excuses and made a lot of things worse, really. So yeah, like when that happened, I wrote like a long thing about it, and I posted it in our group thing at work, like our messaging system thing, and I told everyone I was diagnosed as autistic a few months ago, and this has happened this weekend, and it felt really important to start by talking about it. And I want to be an advocate. I want to be able to amplify the thoughts and feelings of people who can't maybe advocate for themselves all the time. And yeah, I think it was really difficult. It was like a really draining weekend when that happened, but for me at least, like, it's had quite a positive impact on my, like, what I want to do at work in terms of like talking about it with my colleagues. And I think if all of my colleagues can like learn one thing about autism from that, then that's great, and they'll take that into their work, and it'll make things better for some people. So
I just think it's fabulous. I think it's real courage to use that experience to let people who you work with know more about you personally, and to let it was still quite a new diagnosis for you. And it must be tough having that I'm sure it's never easy, that diagnosis, but you're quite old to be getting that diagnosis, so you've lived with that for I do think that it would seem to be quite a thing to be going through at 29, and you've taken that experience. And to be honest, I saw some of the posts that you put on Instagram that weekend that you were talking about, and you really made me more aware of you made me aware of what was going on, and you made me aware of how it could have been done very differently, and perhaps I don't like using the word should, so it could have been done very differently, and I think it would have been good if it had been done very differently. What I'm trying to say is I think it should have been done differently, but trying not to use the word should, because we can't go around telling people what to do. But also, the fact that she didn't hold her hands up and go, okay, I totally hear what you say. I'm really sorry for all the, you know, all the hurt I've caused, and actually, you know, it will make me think again. And, you know, that would have been a better outcome, wouldn't it, than what the shambles that did happen. And so you know, you've raised my awareness is the word I'm looking for. And also, just by sharing it today, you will have, you know, the people who listen to this you will have raised awareness there as well. So, you know, and I'm sure you will carry on doing that. I think you're brilliant. I really do. So, you know, thank you for coming on and sharing that story. And, you know, what a 20s you've had. So what do you think, you know, so you've got a few months now, 4 months until you're 30, and who knows whether you'll be, even if you wanted one, whether you'll be allowed to have a party. Who knows where we will be come April, but hopefully we will be, as a country, in a better place than we are now, and hopefully moving out of this terrible situation that we're in. So what are the hopes and dreams for what's to come?
So I recently got married, just in September, in a very small window where weddings were allowed to happen.
Yeah, congratulations again.
Thank you. Very small affair, but very lovely. And yeah, so I think the 30s is going to hopefully bring a new generation into the family. And my brother's wife, well, my brother and his wife are expecting next year as well. So it's really nice. And yeah, so hopefully, I think that's going to be my next thing to focus on.
Next thing. But, you know, to be honest, you've had such a big time in your 20s that I suppose actually just carrying on where you are now would be really great, wouldn't it? You've got a great career, you know, your personal life is settling down, and actually, you know, it's looking, from what I'm seeing, and I hope it is, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And so yeah, all that personal life stuff, career, definitely continue. And like creative projects as well. I've been trying to do, you know, I'm one of these people that has ideas all the time, and I never like do the stuff or like finish the stuff. So I competed, that's not the right word. I participated in National Novel Writing Month in 2020, which is writing a 50,000 word novel in November, and I completed that. So I've got like nearly a first draft.
Yay! Well done, you. I did know about this, and I was almost forgetting to mention it. I mean, how amazing! That's right. And just give us, I think this is fabulous. Can you just give us, do you mind if I ask you, can you just tell us a little bit, because I know what it's about, just tell us a little bit of what it's about, because it's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's called Knighted, and it is like a fictionalized retelling of some of my family history. My granddad was born in Germany, and he was Jewish, and he had to be evacuated during the Second World War. So he moved to the UK then, and then he ended up changing his name so that he could, because he joined the British Army. So he chose the name Knight, and then obviously he and my grandma got married and had their children. So my mum was born with the surname Knight, and then my mum got married and changed her name, and I was born with my dad's name. But then I changed my name to Knight when I was 18, because I don't have any contact with my dad, and you know, the history of the name is really interesting. So I wanted to do that, and then obviously I just got married, and my wife took my name.
Yeah.
as well. And then obviously we're hoping to have kids. So yeah, the name's going to continue.
So the Knights will continue. I mean, it's such a great surname. I can understand you wanting to keep that. And also, I mean, when I say it's fabulous, I mean, it's fabulous that you've written it, and it's fabulous that you are keeping the memory and the story alive. I mean, it's not necessarily so fabulous because of the situation that you're writing about, but you know, he did leave luckily and got out. But it's just what a great what a great family history to use as bits in your novel. I just think it's fab, and you've done it. I mean, I'm trying to write a book, and I know it's really tough to find the time to just sit down and do it, and you've done that. And you tell me you're not great with routine, and you blooming well did it. I am really impressed, because I know how hard that is. So you're a, you know, singer-songwriter, you're a author, you're an art therapist, you've got it all going on, haven't you? I just think it's fabulous, and I you know, I feel like there's big things to come from you. So we'll remember this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, obviously I'll remember this conversation anyway.
And I also want to start a podcast. I've had a couple of ideas, so I think I'm going to try. 2021 is going to be the year.
Yeah, do it.
For the podcast as well. So yeah, hopefully I'll do that. Good
luck with that. Yeah, I thoroughly recommend it, obviously, but yeah, it's great. So that's brilliant. You've got loads of ideas and projects and things that may come off, and you know, you strike me as like you say, you've always got ideas. So that
seeing them through.
Well, you know, you can't see them all through, and if you don't have the ideas in the first place, then you're definitely not going to be seeing any of them through. So that's obviously what I tell myself. So I think it works equally well for you.
Well, I saw my brother a few days ago, and we don't really get on, but he actually said something really interesting, because he's the same. He has all these ideas, you know, he starts projects and he never really finishes them. And he said that he's just started to like embrace that and just go with it. And like the projects that you really want to finish, you'll finish. And then if you start stuff and don't finish it, like it's okay. It's okay to like know that that's who you are, or like how you work.
Yeah.
And especially when it's things like, you know, writing a novel, or like, you know, it's like personal creative projects. It doesn't really matter.
No.
Like, you know, the fun is doing it, and if you don't finish it, it's, you know, you don't need to like feel really bad about that, or like have it as like a negative thing about yourself.
No, absolutely. And I completely agree, but then I suppose I would do, because I'm the same. But also I think until you get into something, I mean, you can have all the ideas, but you need to get into them sometimes to work out quite whether they're grabbing you the way that you think they're going to. And also it might just be that now's not the right time, and you start something. I mean, I have tried to write my book 5 times. I knew I had 3 drafts, and when I came to look at them, I definitely had 4. I might even have had 5 in various guises. Some of it's been a novel, some of it's been a memoir, some of it's been self-help. It's all been roughly about the same thing. And you know, I've tried loads of times and it's not happened, but it is definitely going to happen this time. That's my project for the beginning of 2021. That, and my next crazy idea is making candles. So that was the idea I had the other day. I'm going to have a go at making candles. So I just think, and who knows where that might go. I might just make myself a couple of dodgy candles and never bother again. But you never know.
It's definitely worth doing these things. I got really into lino printing in the last couple of years, and did quite a lot of that. And it's nice to just make time to do things that are creative and switch off from work and switch off from all the craziness going on in the world.
Absolutely. And I think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the lady was talking about creativity, and it's almost like the minute you mention creativity to some people, they sort of switch off and go, oh, I'm not creative, so that doesn't apply to me. And we've sort of, not we as in you and I personally, but generally I think creativity has become like this, you know, unless you're really good at it, you almost can't do it. Whereas actually she was saying, well, why don't we think about it as play instead? Mm-hmm. So actually, you know, have a play. You know, as kids we play and we learn through play. So actually, you know, don't build something up into your head into something so big that you feel like you can't, you know, carry it on. It's just like, I'm just having a bit of a play with this, so I'm going to have a bit of a play and make some candles and see how it all comes out, you know. And I do think we all need a little bit of an outlet. It really does help, like you say, take us sort of somewhere different, in away from the craziness of work and life, and just letting us absorb ourselves into something, and who knows what we'll end up with at the end of it.
Yeah, and I think also when you start being creative and start doing creative things, like you get so many more ideas and you get to be more creative. Like I already have another book idea, which I haven't even finished the first one properly, and I've already got another one that I'm like, I'm going to write this next. And it just, once you start, it unlocks those ideas and the, I guess the creativity. It just makes it even better.
I absolutely think you're right, and it's almost like by allowing yourself to be creative or do one project, it's sort of like, it's almost like takes that level out and it lets something else come to the top, isn't it? You know, that's the way I think of it. I don't know why. I suppose I've got quite a logical brain, so it allows me to think, right, okay, so let's take that top layer off and something else can come up and something else can come up. Cléa, you've been fabulous. Thank you so much. I've so enjoyed having this conversation with you and getting to know you a bit better. It's been lovely. I think, as you know, I've asked everybody whether they have like a little motto or a saying or a quote or a phrase or something that either they use themselves or maybe other people say to them that they think might be useful. And I wondered, do you have one?
One thing I say to myself a lot is, remember that life isn't like it is on TV.
Yay!
Like, I'm very fixated with, well, if this happened, you know, I have this one TV show, Dawson's Creek, that I love. I watch time and time again. Yeah. And I think, well, this happened to those people, so that's what's going to happen to me. And I have to remember that, like, it is fiction and I'm not the same person as those characters.
Yeah.
I think it's the autism, I think that is at play there as well. I often remind myself, like, remember, like, you're living your own life and it's not, your path is not the same as what you've seen.
Yeah. And you're just watching that because that's a storyline that you're enjoying or whatever, and it's good escapism. But was it, remember that life isn't like it is on TV?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's brilliant.
I have that. And then generally I don't have like sayings or things that I kind of I haven't really found many that have spoken to me that much, but I often find a lot of answers and solutions to problems in songs, so like in lyrics.
Yeah.
That like cycles through loads of different songs all the time, so don't really have one. Well, there is one that I come back to a lot, which might sound a bit strange, but I'll say it and then I'll maybe go into it a bit. Is don't fall in love with the moment and think you're in love with the girl, which is a lyric by the 1975. And I just feel like, you know, it's quite easy to be in a situation where like things are really like great at that time and you think that has wider relevance, you know, that because you're having a really good night maybe and, you know, things have been really, really great, it doesn't mean that the people that are with you are like, I don't know.
It doesn't mean it's necessarily going to always be like that with them. This is just this moment where all these people here and the great time that we're having, and it's just all come together to make this really great moment. Is that what you mean?
And I think because I do get quite fixated on like rules and like things being like meant to be and stuff. And you know, it happens with like romantic relationships, but also just generally, I think, well, if all these things have lined up in a certain way, then it means that I have to follow through with this, like whatever it is, situation, you know, job or a relationship or anything. And actually I have to remind myself that just because it might have like a link to something that I already know. So sometimes it's like numbers and things, like if I meet someone on like a certain day, or if something happens on a certain day, like a date with a certain number, then I'll be like, yeah, well, this is meant to be and I have to do this. Whereas actually, like, that is, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's all lined up for that. And it's good to just enjoy the moment. You know, it's good to spot these things, but, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't change your mind afterwards, or go down a different path if it doesn't feel right anymore.
And that's absolutely true. You're absolutely right. If it doesn't feel right, it is okay to go down a different path. And actually, that's right on brand for what I've been trying to talk about in this podcast. And I think that's a great place to end. Thank you. That's fabulous. You've been an absolute joy. Thank you. And I can't wait. I hope we're going to see your book sometime soon.
Well,
Knighted.
Knighted. My wife thinks that it's going to be her ticket to early retirement, but I'm not sure if that's...
Well, obviously I'm trying to write a book as well, and everything I read and hear is that you don't get rich off writing a book. So, but who knows what else might come from it? So, you've written it because it's a family story, and that's a really great reason to write it and see what comes next, isn't it?
Yeah.
You take care. I think, the decade from 2020 to 2021 to 2030 is going to be amazing for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends. Please subscribe. And if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website at www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.